In this video, we'll cover the graph plotting for physics practical. After getting the data in the table as shown here, the next step is to plot the graph. In general, plotting the graph is usually 4 marks, and the marks are awarded based on ASPL, where A stands for the axis, S stands for the scale, P stands for the points, and lastly L stands for the best fit line or the best fit curve. Next, let's start with the A, the axis here. And in this practical, you're asked to plot t squared against h. So t squared is the calculated data over here, the last column, and h is the independent variable. So if you're confused, you can recall your math. Usually you will be asked to plot y against x, and you know that your y is actually the vertical axis. Some call it the rise, and the x is the horizontal axis called the run. To get the marks for A, you have to draw using a ruler the vertical axis followed by the horizontal axis. Okay, some students, sometimes they are lazy to draw and you may not get that 1 mark. So let's draw the horizontal axis. Next, we draw the arrows, and very importantly, we have to label the axis. So the horizontal axis is t squared. This is the physical quantity. You have to put a slash followed by the units, which is second square. And the horizontal axis is h slash followed by the unit cm. So basically, you just need to follow the header that is reflected in the table. So there you have it. You will have your 1 mark for A. Next, for the scale, the scales for the axis should allow majority of the graph paper to be used in both directions and based on sensible ratio. And what do I mean by that? For example, it's like 2 cm on the graph paper will represent maybe 1 unit here. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth. Or it can represent 2 cm is to 2 units, 2, 4, 6, 8. Or even in the intervals of 5, 10, 15, 20. All right, and of course, it doesn't mean it has to be all this whole number. It can be 0 0.2, 0 0.4, 0 0.6, and then 0 0.5, or even 50, 100, 150, so on and so forth. Do not use scales like 2 cm here represent 3, and then followed by 6, followed by 9, odd values like that, because if you were to look for values in between, you will find that it's very difficult to read. Now next, let's label the horizontal axis, and you know that the smallest is 2 and the biggest is 27, so it's quite straightforward. So I no need to jump scale, so 0, start from 0, and you have to label major intervals every 2 cm, so this will be an interval of 5 units, 0 0.5, 10.0, 15.0, 20.0, 25.0, and 30.0. Next, for the vertical axis, it's a bit challenging. Okay, this is 2.04 and start from 1.08. So in order to occupy majority of the graph paper, I need to jump my scale, so I put a diagonal line here, meaning to say this 0 is meant for the horizontal and there's no jumping of scale. But for the horizontal vertical axis here, I'll start from 0 0.8. So likewise, every major interval 2 cm I'll label, and it's an interval of 0 0.20. So 1.20, 1.40, 1.60, 1.80, 2.00, and lastly 2.20. It would be good to do a quick check. So the first point here, okay, which is 2 cm, 2.04, it will be somewhere around here. And the last point here, which is 27, so it will be somewhere 1.08, will be somewhere around here. So you can see that from the first and last point, it will occupy this part of the graph. So if you look at the horizontal axis, it occupies more than half of the graph paper. That's good. And vertically, likewise, it occupies more than half. So that's the gauge that the scale is good, and you will get your 1 mark for your S. Next is for the points, and as you have 5 data points here, so you must make sure you have 5 crosses on the graph, and the teacher will actually check for every single point and if any one of the points is wrong, you will not be awarded the marks. Now, to save time, I've drawn the 5 crosses here on the graph paper clearly for the markers to see. And so if all are correct, you will get that marks for the points. Lastly, the L. In most practicum, the graph will either be a best fit line or curve. If it's not specified, you have to basically follow your data points and decide if it is the best fit line or curve. And one hint to you is, if after plotting the graph, the next question is to find the gradient of the graph, it is obvious that you have to draw a straight line. And for this case, indeed, it is a straight line. And I will just draw it this way, be fair to all points. It's not about joining the dots or that. So there you have it. You have the last point and total 4 marks here. And if you have done the experiment wrongly for certain reason and you still have your data in the table and you plot your graph according to the wrong data, you will still get most of the points. So not to worry about that, just be careful when you plot the graph. So I hope this video actually shows you how to plot the graph confidently and get the 4 marks. Alright, thank you.